Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Get ready for the greatest roast of all time, the Roast of Tom Brady, a Netflix live event happening May 5th. Hosted by Kevin Hart, the 7-time world champion gets his cleats held to the fire by famous friends and frenemies on an unforgettable night where everything is fair game. Tune in on May 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific time for the Roast of Tom Brady, live only on Netflix.
You know, I don't know. Like, you just look at look at this team right now, like Houston and Los Angeles. There's 3 minutes ago in the second quarter as we record this, and it's 46-40. Like, this is not the kind of thing you expect to happen. I just don't care what.
But you always expect what's going to happen is what's going to happen, and this year has been such a smorgasbord of what could happen. You know, like, we've got teams who are, you know, I don't have everything in front of me, but we've, you know, had all kinds of upset. We've had all kinds of really close games down to the wire between teams that you didn't think would be close. I mean,
that's gonna
things
happen.
Just don't happen the way you think they're going to happen.
That's true to a sense.
That's why we watch sports.
That's true in a sense. But the Lakers hanging with the Rockets is like, I think you're a little bit, and this is kind of funny coming from me, a little bit jaded of the idea of what's supposed to happen versus not supposed to happen, because we're sitting here watching the Blazers lose to an Anthony Davis-less Pelicans team.
Okay, they still had Boogie. Why would you think? Okay, let's get started because we've got a lot to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in. Hey, Blazer fans, welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast, part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. I am Tara Bowen-Biggs, here with Danny Meringue.
The Danny's sticking. It looks like it's sticking. Like, you know,
you are never going to live that down.
I'm probably never going to live it down, but I probably need to change the old Twitter handle back, because I think Danny's 0-2 or 1-2. I don't know. It's not looking good so far. That's for sure.
Dan, I know that you have an overinflated sense of self, but I'm pretty sure that your Twitter handle isn't the reason the Blazers lost the last 2 games.
No. On the litany of reasons
a little bit more detail,
that have caused the
and we'll
losses,
find out if that
low.
comes up as a reason. How's that?
I can probably rattle off quite a few things before we get to that, but I'm going to go ahead and say it's a contributory factor.
Here's what I think we should do. I think we should. The Blazers are coming. They came home from a 5-game road trip where they were 4-1. It was so exciting. They outperformed our expectations, at least my expectations. Came home and have lost the last 2 games.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that road trip went. Honestly, I think everybody would have called 3-2 a successful trip. 2-3 was kind of like expected. 1-4 would have been like, man, that sucks. But like, when you look at who they were playing and where this kind of the schedule kind of rolled through, you're like, okay, I can see that happening. Like, things could go south, and Aminu still isn't back, but then lo and behold, we get 1-4. Like, you have to
4-1.
4-1. Yeah, that's
now I'm thinking, did I say
no?
1-4?
I'm the idiot. 4-1. I was probably sitting here thinking, with the way things were kind of playing out, that it was going to go 1-4. It was so ingrained in my head that 1-4, 2-3 were going to be okay. But yeah, you come home 4-1. But yeah, you kind of expect after 4-1 road trip, the old adage, you know, the first game back, it's kind of like being on the road still. But Portland was, you know, they had some time off. It wasn't like they were like off the road and then immediately back on the court again.
Okay, I have a couple things to say. I think the schedule seems like they have like all this extra time built in for health, and I don't like it. I mean, I like the fact that they're healthy, don't get me wrong.
But like getting back into a game right away?
But I feel like there's too much time in between games, and like it's not quite enough time to have like a real intense practice, but it's I don't know. I just feel like things are really dragging out and they have too much time in between games to like really establish. And that's why I was excited that they went on the road. And that's why they did well on the road.
Well, they did well on the road because they kind of got in a groove, but they also did well because, teams up and down the entire schedule on the road were missing their star players. I mean...
And they will. I mean, teams are going to continue losing their star players. At some point we might lose our... But Dan, everybody else still has to play those teams as well.
Yeah, but
it's not like everybody says, Portland's coming. Let's make sure our star player is injured.
No, it's just the luck of the draw. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, everything is kind of lined up for Portland to do well, and they're still sitting there finding themselves clawing at the records. Like, it's like you play a Memphis team that doesn't have Mike Conley, and things are going sideways, and Marc Gasol's about ready to just lose it, and they're at the time we're on the verge of firing their head coach. So things weren't going well there. You play Philly, who, granted, Markelle Fultz hasn't really been in the lineup, and we haven't really seen what he's going to be, but that's a big piece of their franchise missing. John Wall sitting out. He hasn't
been a part of their franchise at all this year. They've got plenty of other really star players. But not having Markelle Fultz is not something that we can say, well, they didn't have Markelle Fultz.
No, but that's what I'm saying is, like, Philly gave it to Portland without him. That's the crazy thing. You got no John Wall for the Wizards. Enes Kanter, you laugh all you want for the Knicks, but Enes Kanter being out is huge. I'm looking at what he did tonight. I think he had 18 and 16 tonight.
I love that he's turning out to be like a total.
He's the perfect piece alongside
person in Knicks. I'm so excited that he fits in so well.
I mean, he's the perfect guy for what the Knicks want alongside Porzingis. I mean, he's playing some defense. He's eating up the paint. Porzingis is coming off the weak side and blocking shots left and right. So, I mean, again, Portland, I think, is getting lucky with a lot of these injuries and where things are happening for them on the schedule. But Portland is also, I don't want to say they're taking advantage of those. They are ultimately in the win column, but
they're doing what they do.
Well, in the end of it, in the road trip, they took care of what they needed to as far as the win-loss column. They didn't make it easy on themselves. And I think in those situations, they needed... And people will say, well, yeah, the other team gets a boost when a guy's out, guys step up. Yeah, but when you're talking about wanting to be up there as Portland gets up there, those are the opportunities you need to take advantage of. But the one thing, at least for me, to take away from that road trip beyond the 4-1 was, hey, Dame found his offense. Yay!
That was exciting. And you know what? If we wanted to be fans of a team where you could predict what was going to happen, we could be fans of the team from the Bay Area, and that would be.
I like
but we're not. We are Blazer fans, and so we are sticking through with them.
So we're masochists.
Why are you laughing?
Oh, God.
Okay, so I want to talk about the two games that the Blazers just played at home, the two losses, and because I want to know what happened. Because let me tell you what I thought going in. I'm going to give you a little trip into my mind, Dan. This is what I thought was going to happen. Hold on. Okay, so with Milwaukee, to be honest, I actually never thought that this was a good matchup for the Blazers. No, I mean, most people probably didn't think it was a great matchup for the Blazers. I think they were actually favored to win the game, but I don't know. My 12-year-old cat could have come up with better odds than that. I don't know why they were favored
Milwaukee
in this matchup.
Milwaukee is a matchup nightmare for Portland.
So there's the length, outside of Eric Bledsoe and Jason Terry, they're all arms and legs. Yeah. That doesn't bode well for our undersized guards, especially when we're playing three undersized guards. The red jerseys, laugh all you want.
No, I'm not against it at all. Like
I've been keeping track for the last few years, and even in those lovely, beautiful, very popular red jerseys of yore, they did not have a great record in the red jerseys. You also brought up earlier the thing about the first game back being like the last game of a road trip, and I don't have any stats, and I really wish I knew somebody who could pull those stats for me to back that up. But I think it's kind of something that I've heard talked about in a few different places.
It is an old NBA adage, and there is some truth to it. I have to pull the numbers to pull the historical truth from it, but it's something that's pretty well known as far as not necessarily win-loss, but how teams perform. You hear it from coaches, you hear it from players. It's just the rhythm of being at home isn't there. So
right.
That's
No,
just,
and I imagine after you've been on a road for an extended period of time, and
especially
then
a 5-game trip,
and,
but
there's actually. There was one other reason that I thought this was going to be a tough go for the Blazers going into it, and that has to do with the type of defense that they've been playing. I've been reading really closely the Mike Richmond articles, right? Mike Richmond for the Oregonian, he's been writing articles about like what type of defense the Blazers has been playing and what it's been sort of based on. Mm-hmm. He wrote an article about how, like, I think it was in the preseason where the coaches were like, okay, should we stick with the same principles we've been teaching and, trying to get everybody to espouse over the last 3 seasons, or do we just start from scratch? And they decided that they were going to keep doing what they were doing. And basically,
they just tweaked the formula a little bit.
Right. And the thing that it's predicated on, as far as I understand, is limiting the number of threes that the opponent gets and making their, not getting those threes. So like reducing their opponent's
step 1, eliminate the threes. Step 2,
eliminate the threes. And then if they do take the threes, make them tough and contested and make make it hard. So I had latched onto this, and the Milwaukee Bucks are not a big 3-point, scoring team. They're, pretty low in terms of the number of attempts that they get.
There's one guy you really need to worry about. That's really what it comes down to.
So, it makes sense that Portland right now would be pursuing that type of defense because they have to play the teams from the West 3 or 4 times. They have to play Houston. They have to play the team from the Bay Area. And it makes sense that that's what the type of defense that they're focusing on. And every once in a while, they're going to get teams that they match up poorly in that category. This was so disappointing because I spent all Saturday reading up about this type of defense. And I was just like, this is going to be awesome because we're going to play the Pelicans. And even though we lost they lost the game the night before, they're going to, stick to those defensive principles, and they're going to hold the Pelicans down in their 3-point shooting. They're going to reduce their shots. And that is so not what happened. Yes. The Pelicans ended up shooting 31 to their opponents against the Blazers. They usually have been shooting an average of about 25.
So they're getting 31. More attempts off, and they're hitting
right.
More.
So they got more attempts, and not only that, the Blazers have been really good this year. So I looked historically. Last year, the Blazers were pretty good at limiting the amount of threes that their opponents
particularly
took.
in the corners.
They weren't terrible at that. Right. So they were pretty good at that. But the percentage that their opponents were getting was very high in the league. This year, they've been able to turn that around. So they've been able to hold down the number of attempts, and they've been able to hold down the shooting percentage. Mm-hmm. And then last night happened, and their opponent shot 48% from 3.
And here's the kicker.
And what happened?
Rajon Rondo, 2 of 3. Tony Allen, 1 of 2. Dante Cunningham, 2 of 2. Like, when that happens, pack it up, go home. Rajon Rondo and Tony Allen are hitting threes on the same night. Just throw out the circus tent, get out the unicycle, because stuff's going crazy. I mean, you're talking about 2 of historically the worst shooters in the entire league. I mean, for guys that actually get minutes. And, I mean, I made a joke. Like, it was death by Rondo jumpers. He was 5 of 9 from the field last night. You're sitting there just like, no. You're not this way. It's like you're sitting there writing your own obituary, and you're like, somebody else takes the pen, and you're like, no, not like this. Not like this. Please, God, not like this. Because, I mean, if Boogie drops 40 and 20 on you, and guys are getting to the rim, and they're just dropping dimes all over the floor, and they're slicing you up in the paint, you expect that. But there's no AD. So there's no gravity elsewhere. And for the most part, and we'll get to Meyers because we have to get to Meyers. Meyers, in a one-on-one capacity, made Boogie work his butt off on shots. Mm-hmm. Now, Boogie hit some shots that were just you tip the cap about 6 times and go home because, I mean, he is what he is. I mean, he's just a monster. But the other guys just killing Portland. Dante Cunningham hitting 2 wide open corner threes when everybody's like, go ahead and take them. I mean, yeah, I get the idea. Cunningham shooting 29% on threes heading into that game, 30%. And you kind of want him stepping into that shot. But, I mean, you got to be within 10 feet.
But what, I mean, the Blazers have been focused on this. Okay, so we're both pretty worked up about this. Let's take a step back. Give me I can't believe I'm asking this. Give me a measured explanation of what happened to the Blazers defense last night against the Pelicans.
Okay, the first quarter was fine. And you could see
the first quarter and 3 quarters.
No, it fell. Even if it didn't replicate on the scoreboard, the effort and the intensity and the focus, more than not even halfway into the second quarter, it was gone. Like it was very, very adamant, where the switch was flipped. And Nurkic and Dame both said it in the postgame comments. I don't even have to guess. They looked past New Orleans because AD was out. They saw AD walking into the Moda Center on crutches.
I can see that they shouldn't look past New Orleans.
Yeah,
why are they looking past New Orleans?
They shouldn't
when
look past anybody. This is not the team that can look past anybody. They
have no room for error.
No, you have Dame, CJ, and Nurkic, and if one of those guys has an off night against any opponent, you're struggling. You don't have the ability to have somebody step in there and just fill 30 points. If one of those guys have an off night. And CJ had one of his off nights. I mean, he ended up 8 of 22, and that was recovering. I think at one point in time he was 2 of 12. It's weird because CJ's always been the guy that I always, when people talk about the distinctions between Dame and CJ, there's a lot of overlap in their game. How they go about things is very different. But Dame to me is always the kind of guy, and I want to shout out to Ben Gulliver here, a little bit of shake rating. Dame's the guy that has the wild nights where he can have some really bad shooting nights, but he can also have some nights where he can drop 20 plus in a quarter. I kind of group those guys 5 to 8 guys in the league who can just go absolutely ham in a quarter and win you a game in that one quarter. CJ, I think, has the propensity to do it much less frequently, but his consistency is much more steady. Over the last 2 weeks, I think CJ's had 2 or 3 of his worst shooting outings of his career. That, it's just wild how that's occurred. This is kind of, it's tongue in cheek. He switched from Nike to Li Ning, and if you look at all the Li Ning athletes, it's just a roster of non-shooters. When he signed with Li Ning, I was kind of hoping that he would go work with Dwayne Wade and learn how to finish in the paint through contact and draw free throws, the only hole in CJ's game. But instead, through osmosis, he took Dwayne Wade and everybody else in Li Ning's poor shooting, and he's absorbed that over the past couple of weeks. It's the only reason, the justification I can find for CJ struggling. Because this is a guy that throughout his career has not had back-to-back bad shooting nights. And he's had 3 out of 4. It's just weird.
Are people playing him
No,
differently?
he's getting his shots.
Is there a new scouting report? He's getting to his spots.
Yeah,
he's just not.
From what I see, he's getting to his spots, and from 3, he's still been okay. Now, the Pelicans game notwithstanding, he was 1 of 6 in that game. So we're seeing a little bit of the regression from the 50% three-point shooting. And maybe that's part of it, is that he started out so well, and we're so used to him being unbelievable from 3, which is true anyways, but also from the mid-range. In my opinion, the best mid-range shooter in the league is Kevin Durant. CJ is, we're literally, pull a hair off my head, and that's where CJ's at. And that the only reason I give the nod to KD is because he's 7 foot tall and he can get it off against anybody. But
Evan Turner always says that the M is for mid-range.
Exactly. So Evan has had his ups and downs.
He's actually pretty good he's actually pretty good in the mid-range. He's not Kevin Durant.
No, but he's right up until the last few games that he's struggled. But Turner can get his shot there for the most part too. But I put CJ and KD in the elite of the elite category because they can get their shots and knock them down. CJ struggled from there recently over the past 2 or 3 weeks, which is kind of weird to see. I don't know if that's just maybe he has something nagging. Maybe it's just a bad shooting streak, which is just for at least for me is weird to see. I don't know where that comes from. You don't really have
an explanation for it. It's
because
we're just going to write it out probably with him.
It hasn't happened before, so I don't know how to adjust with it. When CJ's had a bad shooting night in the past, it's the next night it's 25 on 12 shots. So it's really strange to see this happen frequently. So that's a contributory factor in the game. But like
I wonder if we went all the way back to college, if we would find one.
I don't think you would find CJ 3 out of 4 nights having a bad shooting night up until this period in time as a Trailblazer. Like off the top of my head, I just don't think it's happened. But kind of going back to where this originally came from, the defense, it completely disappeared, and it was because they didn't care. And that sucks to say.
I mean,
they stopped doing a lot of things. There were some serious brainwaves being shut down. Like there was no communication. People weren't closing out. Guys were getting beat at the point of attack. This is stuff that we talked about last year. Like that defense reared its ugly head, and I think it stands out a ton because it's contrary to what we've seen so often from this team. I mean, it's nice to be able to say that this team this year is in a position where the ugly defense stands out in stark contrast because they've played well defensively most of the season. So, I mean, that part of it, I guess, if you're looking for the upside, there it is.
Mm-hmm. So a couple thoughts that I'd like to know what you think about. There were 2, pretty major personnel changes that happened in the last 2 games, and that was Al-Farouq Aminu being back in the lineup, and then also a larger play by Meyers Leonard, at least in the Pelicans game. Yep. So how do the insertion of those 2 guys into the lineup affect the defense? Are they trying to get used to working with people that they aren't used to recently, or what do you think could be going on there?
Working Farouq in is a legitimate deal, and I think that it's a positive thing. Defensively, it shouldn't really be an issue, and I think maybe more than anything, it's just familiarity, just kind of getting back in that groove with him because he's the team's best defender. I mean, that kind of goes without saying, both as a team defender and as a personal defender. So that shouldn't really miss a beat, you would think. But, I mean, it's only natural. You're in a groove with Pat Connaughton, Evan Turner, or Harkless, or whoever else is Noah Vonleh, whoever else is out there. And while I see a lot of people saying that Coach Stotts needs to tweak this or change that, Stotts has done a pretty hefty amount of juggling as far as lineups go. Mm-hmm. So for people who say that he needs to tweak this or change that, Stotts has done more than any other head coach in the league would willfully change. Like we've had 3 or 4 different starting lineups in the past couple of weeks. That's for the NBA, that's a lot. Especially when you don't, other than the Aminu injury, you don't have injuries. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to find the best possible situation to put these guys in to succeed. And I think that they alluded to it in the post game last night. I think we may see Aminu shortly in the starting lineup again. I don't know if that means Pat comes out of the 3 and Aminu goes in there and they start Aminu and Vonleh, or if it means Pat stays in and Aminu goes to the 4 and they play a little bit smaller but a little bit more athletic. There's a lot of ways that can go. But working Meyers in, I mean, Meyers, when he came onto the floor, looked like the only guy who cared against New Orleans. And I know I'll get stick for it for being a Meyers guy, but he was a spark. I mean, he was a spark both times he came on the floor. And it wasn't just his offense. When he came in and he grabbed that ball and started flexing, like it got the team going. Like there's plenty of times for me to gripe about things last night during the game. But Meyers, other than I think one possession where he didn't help and instead stayed tight to Omar Ashik, which I don't think you necessarily have to do. And I think he caught himself on that one. Defensively or offensively, I didn't have a single problem with what Meyers did. He did what he needed to do. He made Boogie work his butt off. He knocked down shots. He was confident. He was physical at the point of attack. He slapped the living hell out of Boogie. I mean, I like that from him. And I know some people were he's fake, he's scared. Like, I don't think Meyers is scared of anybody in this league. And he apologized and he did that. I'm like, I think he apologized because he legitimately meant to slap the ball and not catch Boogie's entire left shoulder. And even Boogie said it in the postgame. So, like, working those guys in, like, this is the longest roundabout way. Working those guys in, I think, is the least of Portland's issues because I think both those guys can genuinely give Portland some things that they need. Aminu obviously is consistency on the defensive end. Meyers, I think, is this is something we've talked about before. The uniqueness of a player's skill set for a position. Meyers, to me, is the only guy on this roster that offers that. Like, Dame and CJ give you what you expect from the guard position. All these guys all give you what you expect from their respective position. The one guy that's a tendency breaker is Meyers. So him being out there
because of his outside shooting.
Exactly. He is a tendency breaker for a position. You pull an opposing center out. Even if he only takes 1 or 2 threes, the space that was given to the offense by Meyers being out there, it's massive.
So I was thinking about this afternoon because I was looking and I saw how little Ed Davis and Noah Vonleh played. And I mean, Ed Davis had a fantastic first quarter. I mean, he played wonderfully and he was perfect. I mean, he had those 3 for 3 or whatever he was. I mean, he had a really nice game. He was getting rebounds. He was aggressive. He was having a great game. And so
box score wise, him and Vonleh both were.
Right,
I mean,
right. So some people were wondering why Meyers continued to play when those two had been doing so well. And my theory was because of what you just said, is because Meyers at least unclogs the paint a little bit and is better actually for the offense.
I'm going to go all hot techie here. If you can't see that, you need to readjust how you're watching basketball. Like the performance.
Not everybody.
No. I'm
is
just
up
saying.
to speed like you are, Dan.
I'm just saying, if you're questioning why after what Meyers was giving you, and let's take Meyers out of the whole thing. And if any player is stretching the floor like he was, giving the emotion to the crowd like he was, doing everything that he was doing, instigating Boogie, being physical, making him work for everything. If that's Noah Vonleh gets every one of those minutes. If that's Ed Davis, he gets every one of those minutes. Meyers was out there because of exactly what he was doing. Nobody should be questioning Meyers Leonard being on the floor in that time period. Like that right there is absolutely evident.
So taking his name out of the equation, because I think that's a good idea. Say player, or Danny Leonard isn't there playing. People who are not as into his game might still say, but Boogie still scored 38 points.
Boogie had to work for every single shot against Meyers, and he hit some unreal shots. I mean, there was the one. Okay, there was the one where Meyers got called for the foul after Boogie pushed off and traveled, and that one to me was absolutely crazy. And the game was already kind of going out of hand. That was one where Stotts got teed up, but they ended up giving. I think they gave Boogie the and one on that. Number one, it should have been an offensive foul.
Boogie shot like 6 free throws on that play or something.
Yeah,
it was up there forever.
Because there was a technical foul. Yeah, it was just like, are you crazy? But yeah, I mean, Meyers took the shuck, which should have been an offensive foul. Then there was a travel, and then came the foul by Meyers. So and there was just some stupidity going on that end. But again, Meyers made him work. I'm not making an excuse for Meyers here. It was a series of horrendous calls by Ed Malloy. But Meyers challenged him at the 3-point line, made him shoot over the top of him.
I hate it when you make me have to play the bad guy attacking Meyers Leonard's play. No, that's so unfair.
I understand.
Love Meyers Leonard.
People are saying, why didn't we do this with Boogie? Why didn't we do that? Because Boogie's the best center in the league. That's why. He's the only guy in the entire NBA who's averaging over 10 boards and 5 assists. There are 3 guys in the league who can do everything that Boogie does at ridiculous size. LeBron James, Kristaps Porzingis, DeMarcus Cousins. And the only reason I don't put AD in that category is because AD's not – he's tall and he's long, but he's not built. And the reason
he's before
anybody goes crazy, Kristaps is bigger than AD. Like, he's 7'3", folks. There's a big difference between what Kristaps does and what AD does at their respective sizes. Kristaps is there's a reason they call him the unicorn. As freaky as AD is, Kristaps is even more. That's the insane part about all this. But what Boogie can do, and Stotts alluded to this in the postgame, You can't double team him because he can pass. You can't double team him because he can face up. You can't put additional pressure on him. So Meyers is on an island on one of the hardest matchups in the entire NBA from 26 feet out and in. For Meyers to be able to make him work on every single shot, regardless if Boogie hits it or not, that's what you're asking him for. Play good defense. If Boogie hits it, it's because he's one of the 3 most talented players in the NBA. Not because Meyers didn't play good defense. And then they'll take Meyers out of it. Ed Davis, if you're putting Ed Davis on him, and here's the thing, Ed tried to guard Boogie a couple times, and this is why I kind of going back to why I think Meyers beyond the floor spacing. Boogie shed Ed Davis like he wasn't there. You got me making up names now, but he shed him a couple times like he wasn't there, and that's crazy because Ed's strong as a horse. Meyers he's just a bigger dude than Ed. So it's difficult to move him out of the way. All in all, there's nothing with Meyers' performance, and call me a Meyers stan, Meyers fan, Meyers lover, whatever you want to call me. There was nothing wrong with his performance on either side of the floor last night. There's no way that I would have given any of those minutes that Meyers had to anybody else for what he gave that team. And that's the thing, is he played less than 16 minutes. We're not talking about Meyers out there for 30 minutes. He did all of that.
I wanted to actually interrupt a little bit because I wanted to say, Meyers was the backup center, and he did a really good job. Can you address how
Invisible
Nurkic or the rest
was?
of the committee guarded Boogie?
Nurkic was fine for the first.
ASIC?
Yeah, Nurkic was fine for the first quarter. But then, like I said, that switch flipped across the board, man. Like, the only guys that seemed to care out there for a period of time were Shabazz and Meyers. Vonleh did too, but Shabazz and Meyers were the only guys that on the defensive end where you could see they still were engaged.
Right. I don't know. I would say that Dame still looked engaged to me, and so did CJ, because CJ knew that his shot wasn't falling. There
were stretches where both those guys, and I think it's the first time this season where they both did it for a stretch of time, just turned off, because Jrue Holiday and Rondo, while the percentages in their total shots made weren't crazy, I mean, they hit 13 out of 27. So, I mean, it's an okay night. It's nothing crazy. Combined, they scored 29 points. But it wasn't about necessarily them scoring as much as where they got to on the floor easily. And that's between them, they created 17 assists.
Okay.
That's a lot of playmaking. 17 of 22 assists came from those two guys basically getting where they wanted with very little resistance. And that's
a lot of assists. There was 17 between two of them?
Yeah. Jrue had 7 and Rondo had 10. So that's a problem. And that was kind of where I think things got sideways. Where Portland hasn't been beat by one pass a ton this season, you've usually had to gone to 2 or 3 to kind of get the integrity of the defense to break down. Against the Pelicans, it was one pass. And that's a big-time problem.
It seemed like the only way that the Blazers were going to, to flip it to the offense, it seemed like the only way that the Blazers were going to have the ability to get through Milwaukee was by those multiple passes and those multiple assists, because with Milwaukee, there's just so many arms and legs that the only way your pass is going to make it through is if you've got someone like spinning, doing the Dirk washing machine move. Yeah. That's the only way you're going to get it. The only way you're going to get it through. Assists is something I've been wondering about too, because the Blazers have the fewest assists. They're averaging the fewest assists in the league right now.
Yeah, no, that's nothing new.
Is that necessarily a problem, or is that just indicative of their type of play?
It's both. It's a problem because here's the thing: is that Dame and CJ are both capable playmakers. Nobody's going to confuse either one of them for Steve Nash. That's not their game. That's not what they're supposed to do. It's not what they're great at. And it's not. And I hate when I hear the pure point guard. Like, there's no such thing as a pure point guard anymore. Like, these guys are
just there's very few pure centers as well.
Yeah, and it's not that they're not there. It's just that their point guards and guards in general are being called upon to do more than they've ever done before. To set the play, to score, to knock down threes, to finish inside, to fight through picks. I mean, like the amount of things that guards, not even just point guards, just guards in general have to do in the NBA is crazy. Like James Harden is not as a quote unquote shooting guard, but he's leading the league in assists. And it's not because he has the vision of, you know, Steve Nash, I keep going to Nash, or Magic Johnson, or any of these guys that have been traditionally phenomenal playmakers. It's because of their dictating the offense. Here's one for all the people who hate ISOs. James Harden leads the NBA in ISO percentage. He creates assists off his ISOs. Here's the thing. The Houston Rockets have a ton of guys who can knock down shots across the board.
So to simplify it, when you say he creates assists off ISOs, that's because people come at him and then he's able to kick it out and he's got open guys options. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, he's one of the best finishers in the league. So you can't just, if he beats a guy off the dribble, you can't just let him get to the rim. And so here's the difference. Where Dame's doing the same thing, guys are helping freely. The guy that they're helping off of isn't Eric Gordon or PJ Tucker or Chris Paul or Trevor Ariza. They don't have Clint Capella running down the middle, who's just like an absolute monster on the lob. And here's another thing. Chris Paul and James Harden both throw lobs better than anybody in Portland.
Oh, I love those so much. I wish we had a lob thrower so much. Because
I think Nurk could be a guy. And heck, here's a crazy thought. Pat Connaughton. Pat Connaughton's he's got bunnies. I think he has more lobs.
I thought it was going to be I thought Jake Layman would be good at it if he ever saw the floor. But the more I see Pat Connaughton on the floor, the more I think he'd be good. And the thing that surprises me, I would think that Turner would love throwing those things. It seems like right down his alley.
Turner's the best lob passer on this team right now.
I feel like he should be doing more of that. But like, to get back to the assist thing. So is that something that the Blazers, you feel like, should be addressing?
No, it's a product of the roster.
It's a product of the roster. It's a product of the fact that they just don't have good enough.
They don't have the horses.
Reliable enough wings or Meyers Leonard out there enough to move things around.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some other things, like, especially after these last two games? I guess part of it is like how worried should we be as fans about the last two games?
Okay.
And then what did you see that you think are the things that the Blazers should be prioritizing in correcting?
Look, I don't want to be all doomsday here but this is kind of, we haven't talked about it much on the podcast because things have been going well. But this is what I was alluding to, before the season started. Like, if you start dropping games that you shouldn't be dropping, remember when we had the season preview? This is where we said, okay, you can't drop these games because this next stretch, when you get into it, is not where you can afford to screw around. There's a period where they have Houston, Golden State, San Antonio.
It's like next week.
Yeah, like, and it's all in a row, and it's not going to be fun. Like, the only team that I think that has a worse stretch in the next couple of weeks is Utah, and they play everybody that Portland plays, and then some in a tighter schedule on the road. Like, it's vicious what they have to go through.
So what are the things they need to focus on them? I mean, I know it's obviously they need to do everything just exactly right because
but you can't turn the switch.
Error.
That's the thing, is like when they're recognizing the fact that they're overlooking an opponent, like, that's not something you can address in practice. That's a mentality thing. Like, Dame can't let that happen. If you're and I don't often call it Dame because he doesn't do this very often. But if you're going to be the leader of the team, like, that kind of stuff can't fly. Like, you need a Juwan Howard moment where an ice bath needs to go sideways in a locker room. And that's not Dame's MO. Like,
right.
I kind of hope that
Yusuf Nurkic is going to be that guy. Right, because he's been the one who's freely saying all of these things. And God, it was so that life comes at you fast. Wasn't
that
awesome
a great line?
Quote?
Yeah, like, you basically, you act dumb real quick, and guess what? In the NBA, you're going to find out real quick what happens. And kudos to Nurkic for realizing that, because some people don't have the self-awareness on teams, especially at 23 years old, to realize that. Now, realization and reaction are two totally different things. So, like, how they go about figuring that out, that's the key question. Like, I wish I had the answer on that one, because they showed, and I was definitely somebody who didn't think it was possible to have this kind of turnaround. Now, I don't totally believe in it to where they're at right now. With the defense being a top 5 unit, I think that's a little bit of fool's gold because of the schedule. But top 10, top 12, I think
that would be a big turnaround from last year.
Yeah, I think it may be doable. And I was probably the biggest skeptic in the league of doing that. So, but that requires the commitment, and turning off for entire halves, let alone games, is not something you can do in their position. I mean, even a team like Golden State or San Antonio or Houston, you can't do that in the NBA because every team in the league has a player or two that if you give them, an inch, they'll take a mile, and when they get going, man, they can. I mean, hell, even the Lakers. We're talking about this Lakers-Rockets game. I'm still not that high on Brandon Ingram, but he had a game the other night where he just went absolutely ham. And if Brandon Ingram can do that for the Lakers, Boogie, you give Boogie an inch, he's gonna just absolutely kill you. And that's not to say that the Blazers gave Boogie an inch, but they gave everybody else an inch, and that more than makes up for it. So they've got to find a way to tighten those screws before they do anything else.
So you're thinking, it's not mechanical fixes. It's
mental.
It's that. And what's really interesting, I think, is I think the way that they've been playing, and going back to the series of articles that Mike Richmond has written about the stuff that they're doing on defense, I think that they are trying to be very consistent with that. And I think this is the year that we're seeing the mechanical consistency that we didn't see before. And now, on top of that, they have to, come in with the right attitude. The attitude needs to be just as consistent. They all talked about it at media day, that being accountable was knowing what your role is and doing it. So it seems like they've reached to the point where
we've heard that lip service before.
They know where everybody needs to stand. They know the plays that are going to run. They know, how they're going to defend these various different things. They just have to do it all of the time now.
Yeah, and
so
I think
not a mechanical fix. Between the ears, we can do this. We can do this part of it too.
Yeah, in the past, you could point to, as far as mechanics and stuff like that go, you could point to personnel. As in, Mason Plumlee was undersized at the center position and couldn't cover up for the Dame CJ issues. Those issues probably would have been less had Dame and CJ given more on the defensive side of the ball, but they were missing the extra piece offensively, so you kind of went back and forth. So you could see how Stotts would have a difficult problem addressing those issues. Now with Nurkic in there, and I think that people are to the point now where they can realize this, just by Nurkic's general size and presence, it deters a ton of shots. Whether or not he's engaged or not, and I think this is part of the problem, is that he's aware of it and everybody else is aware of it, that he's just big. And just by being a massive human being, you have this ability to guys just don't want to go in there. So you can get a little bit aloof. And then Dame or CJ sees that and goes, oh, you know what? I have that safety blanket behind me. But when that safety blanket's not turned on and doesn't care, that's
your safety blanket doesn't care.
Yeah, I mean, when your binky is all tattered and gone, then that's a problem. So because by the time the guys on the perimeter realize that, it's the third quarter and you're down 20 to the freaking Pelicans without Anthony Davis.
It doesn't matter that they didn't have Anthony Davis.
Yes,
this was always going to be hard. It would have been it might have been even worse, except for
no.
It could have been even worse, but with just Boogie alone, that was tough enough.
That's the thing, is that roster should not, from their guards to their forwards, this team doesn't have a real small forward.
The Blazers?
The Pelicans. No, well, the Blazers too. We get around to that point.
So they should have matched up pretty evenly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as far as depth of wing play, these are probably the two worst teams in the league. As far as what they can give you, diversifying assets. And that's not taking shots at Pat Connaughton. Pat's been really good over the last couple games. Pat, even in the Pelicans game,
he's been outplaying expectations for sure. I would say
he's. As far as a 3-and-D guy is what you're expecting and what you're wanting out of that role, We are expecting 10 to 12 points, couple rebounds, couple assists, play good defense, and generate an extra possession by getting an offensive rebound or getting a steal or getting a block from the weak side. Like, he ticks all those boxes. Like, I'm not going to look
for
at
like $3 million a year.
Yeah, I'm not going to look at Pat Connaughton and be like, why didn't Pat give us more? You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy in my mind. So that part of it's fine.
Amazingly, we've spent most of this time talking about the defense.
When the offense has been,
there were some concerns with the last couple of games, but amazingly they were sort of isolated this season. What's going on with the offense? I mean, we talked about CJ, and he just seems to be on a streak.
It's been amplified because let's take a look at CJ's last couple of games. 4 of 15 against New York, 7 of 20 against Milwaukee, and that was after he bailed himself out, and 8 of 22 against New Orleans. He didn't shoot over 37% in any of those games. Now, before that, he was 10 of 19 and 11 of 20 against Brooklyn and Washington. But before that, he was 1 of 14 against Philly.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, and 4 out of his last 6 have literally been some of the worst nights of his career. I mean, when he's struggling that much, you don't sit there and go, what's going on with the offense? You go, what the hell's going wrong with CJ?
Right. I mean, he doesn't appear like nothing has changed with his mechanics. He doesn't
it's
have
not like he's
pulled shoulder or like broken hand or anything. Like you can't see any outward.
No, that's why you wonder if it's
to the left.
Yeah, like you wonder if
it's just to the left.
Like, did he roll an ankle in practice? Is he sick? Like, that's when you start like going through the book. Like, okay, what could possibly be wrong? Because it's not like it's shot selection. Because from watching the games, I'm not sitting here going, God, CJ, that was a dumb shot. Because for CJ, like most shots are good. Yeah, like most shots are for him are good shots. That's the thing. Is like CJ is one of the outside of Steph and KD. For my money, CJ's the best shooter in the league. The only hole in his game as far as shooting is finishing inside. Like that's the only thing that I question. Hell, I mean, I put it down on Twitter. Oh God, I think that's when it all started. No, but joking aside.
Thanks a lot, Danny.
Yeah,
way to go.
There goes Danny. Danny's striking again. But I put it out on Twitter, and even CJ retweeted it. His synergy stats. He's the best spot up shooter in the entire NBA at the time. Like he was shooting his effective field goal percentage on spot ups, I think, or adjusted field goal percentage, was like 78%. Like guys don't shoot that from the free throw line. Right. I mean, the numbers that he was projecting for on the catch and shoot they were video game turned down to rookie level stuff. I mean, so to expect some regression, yeah, but to expect that regression to just happen all at once, that's a kick in the potatoes. Like that's not fun, and that's something that this team, because of the lack of diversity in scoring, they just can't recover from. Because you can't ask Pat Connaughton to drop 20. Like you can ask Nurkic to have a big night, sure. You can ask Dame to have a big night, absolutely. But when CJ's, and we're not talking about like, oh, he had an okay night. We're talking about just dumpster fire nights. 1 of 14 from a guy who averages 24 a game and is like a candidate for 50, 40, 90 or 45, 40, 90, whatever you want to call it. Just a damn good shooter. And you don't have somebody behind him that can create off the bounce. You're basically asking Dame and Nurk to give you, 40 apiece. That's just not fair.
Well, and I think at the beginning of the season, there was it was unclear who besides Dame and Nurk and CJ were going to be able to fill in, on any given night. And I think one, good thing that we can turn to is that we are getting pretty regular production of some kind out of Pat Connaughton. We've had a lot of nights from
Noah Vonleh. Vonleh's been giving you quite a bit.
Shabazz Napier. We've had more people than I was expecting at the beginning of the season able to kind of fill in there and here in a little bit. And Aminu back.
Aminu started the season off fantastic. I mean, when Dame was struggling out of the gate, Aminu was, just cannon threes. So I'm you're getting what you expect out of and this is why I kind of alluded to that darkness creeping in. Other than CJ having his bad nights, you're getting kind of what you expect out of guys. Now Harkless has fallen off mightily. Contributions from him have been next to nothing, but you're getting probably Harkless production out of Pat Connaughton. So I think that's a pretty even trade as far as what you're getting out of those guys. Noah Vonleh has given quite a bit. Nurkic
he's had some big games.
Yeah, other than if you look at Nurkic's numbers post October, if you're from November 1st on, because he struggled the first week and a half of the season, first 10 games or so. I think he's averaging 17 and 9. That's pretty damn good, right?
I'd be curious to see just lining up on those nights where if CJ had a poor shooting night, how much the Blazers would have scored had he had more a regular expected night, so is his how much is his lack of shooting right now affecting the wins and losses? Not that CJ can handle the pressure of that.
Yeah,
so I'm not saying how is it CJ's fault.
Okay, but, if we're talking about factors for weighting wins and losses, Dame CJ production way heavier than anything else. More than defense, more than rebounding, more than the other guys. If one of those guys, you can handle one of those guys having an okay night because their okay nights are still 22 points. They just their percentages are down. They just have
to take more shots to get there.
Exactly, they're still getting them, but CJ's production has just been a dumpster fire in these bad nights. 12, 15, 17. That's how many points you're getting from him in the last 3 games. These are
I don't like the term dumpster fire, but those are not good for CJ.
No, you can't survive game unless Dame or Nurk just gets stupid hot, or the Knicks play absolutely horrid basketball, which was the case in the Knicks game. The first half for the Blazers, you probably say the first 3 quarters was very good basketball outside of CJ. The production you got from everybody else was very good, but it was also a case of the Knicks being the Knicks. And here's the crazy thing: is the Knicks up until that point, I think they were 9-2 at home. And Porzingis has had, and credit to Noah Vonleh, and not to get off track or anything here, but Porzingis had his worst game of the season as far as overall production. Now I think part of that was Porzingis having a bad night, and the other part of that was Noah Vonleh playing very well against him. But if that's a normal night for Porzingis and the Knicks not just going full-blown stupid, that's another game that Portland could possibly drop because CJ's 4 of 15 in that game, and we just don't see that kind of thing from him.
Well, one of the things that I have enjoyed about this year, even though there have been, along with the highs, there have been some lows. There's certain players who I have grown to trust a lot more than I ever have in their ability to do what is expected of them on the basketball court, and one of them is CJ. And another one is someone you've brought up several times, Noah Vonleh. I guess we're going to have to kind of wrap it up here pretty soon so that we can end up on a more positive note. I'm wondering, who do you think is the player who over the last, 10 games or 5 games, who are the best players on this team right now? Who are the players who are bringing the most to the team right now? I don't know, outside of Dame, because he's essential.
I have to give him the props here because I beat him up pretty heavy early in the season as far as what he was doing, especially with his shot selection. He had some pretty baffling games where you're just
you haven't complained about his shot selection for a while.
No, and that was the thing. In the first couple weeks, I was like, man, there were some stupid shots. Dame, stop taking those. the last couple weeks, he's not only have his stats been phenomenal, his shot selection, and with the exception, the New Orleans game is kind of a weird one because I think he was taking shots like to try to get some energy in the building, try to get some energy in the crowd, in the team, that kind of deal. So some of those pull-up 35-footers, while you're not thrilled with them, you kind of understand them because of what he was trying to accomplish.
From that one spot.
You're talking about from the logo, from the Moto Center logo? Yeah. And that was the one that kind of made me go, damn, come on, man. Like, I get why he did it, but you're like, dude, 20 seconds on the clock, 35 feet from the logo. That's
his shot.
Yeah, I know. But otherwise, he's been phenomenal. He has been absolutely, I mean, he's a legit, over the last month probably, he's a legit MVP style candidate. It's from the production.
Do you think he's going to make it to the All-Star?
If the Dame of the past few weeks continues and he gets his numbers back up and the Blazers don't get murdered over this next 60 days, yes, I think he will, because I think one of the OKC guys is going to get left out.
Yeah.
I think Melo may move west and get left out. As crazy as that is, and while the vote may get him in, I honestly think that he may end up getting left out because of how things are kind of sprinkled around, especially with OKC.
For the life of me, I do not understand the current obsession with Melo. I do not understand it. But I don't want to get sidetracked by that. Damian, you've got lots of great praise
beyond those guys. Nurkic has brought it for the most part. Again, we're just going to kind of caveat this and toss out the Pelicans game. We're just going to burn that game tape for all these guys. Vonleh's a guy who I kind of beat up and coming into the season, with his shoulder injury. I'm like, is he even going to find the floor because of the production that Aminu was giving, and what we were getting out of Swanigan early on. I'm like, are they even going to find minutes for him because his contract's coming up? And to his credit, man, he's worked his butt off. Like I don't think we've really had a non-existent Vonleh night other than maybe his first couple games back where he was trying to round himself into form. Aminu's been out, so that's just kind of where it is. Shabazz.
But can we talk about his dribble through the paint and his finishing at the rim? Oh, my God.
Okay,
so
I had a few
awesome.
people over for the game, and the reaction was stunned silence, followed by a lot of laughter. And just kind
Who are these people, Dan? You should have invited me over there because I was cheering for him the entire time he was dribbling that ball.
I mean, it was an adventure in theater, right? Even thinking about it right now, I'm just kind of smiling because it was the fact that it happened. It was kind of hilarious, but it was also kind of cool at the same time. But
to get back to Vonleh, though, he is been involved a lot in a lot of those fun, energy bringing, finish the quarter well, exciting plays.
A block, a dunk, running the floor hard, setting a screen, a big-time rebound, a big-time block. Like, he's had a couple weak-side blocks that were just like, whoa, okay. Like, I do love a good block. While I do prefer the Bill Russell method of blocking the shot to a teammate or blocking it inbound so that you can get it, I'm also a big time fan. Like, if I had to choose, I want the Dikembe. Like, I want no. I want the finger wag. I want somebody's beer spilled, like, who's not paying attention to the game. Like, I want it all to happen. Like, and Vonleh's given a few of those.
Right. Napier
gets my Brass Cojones award because there's not a shot in this world that he will turn down. And while there's times where he shouldn't take it, I love the fact that him and Pat. Like, Pat has come off screens and taken shots with a defender. He had one against was it the Milwaukee game or New Orleans game? He came off a down screen on the 3-point line, caught it one-legged, squared up. It was very Dame-esque, the way Dame will come off that, or CJ even, that one leg kind of lean
I can
fade.
Picture it.
Well, Pat had that exact same shot and didn't hesitate. Like, the audacity to take that shot is something that I really admire in a player. with a guy like Nick Young, it's like, what are you doing? But when you actually have it in your bag, like Nick Young does, he just takes it more frequently, or he did earlier in his career. I think
he
that's
did it a lot
sign,
for effect, I think.
Yeah, where it's when it's needed, yeah. And I think Pat and Shabazz have both had shots like that where you're like, you don't even question it because they're so comfortable taking that shot and so confident in it that you're like, okay, I respect that.
Right.
Like it's the same. It's the antithesis of Meyers. Not to go back to Meyers. Like when he hesitates on a shot, you know he should be taking. Mm-hmm. It's a complete opposite thing. Like when Pat or Shabazz dribbles off a pick and steps into it with full confidence, you're like, okay, you're confident you can take that shot and you've shown you can hit it. I'm cool with this. Do the damn thing, man. So those guys have really shown out a lot recently.
I have two things to say. One thing, so I talked earlier about how I tend to just trust this team more this year. I just trust that they're going to do the thing well the way that they don't always,
Isn't that fun?
I at least have the trust.
You're not like, oh my God, what's going to happen here?
The other thing is I'm not screaming at the TV about don't hesitate anymore. Like I rarely am. There was so much hesitation last year all the time. You get the ball and then think about what to do with it.
I don't want to bring the bus out, but King Hesitator's gone. I mean, I don't want to run him over, but
right.
I mean, God,
I think things like that are contagious. I think when you've got people who don't hesitate as much, that's contagious. Like Pat Connaughton doesn't hesitate for a moment. Napier doesn't hesitate for a moment.
There's two parts
Meyers
of that.
Still hesitates because he's very cerebral and he's also super tall. And I think it takes a long time for like everything to process through his giant body. But he's even hesitating less. Yeah, it takes a long time to get up there. But even he is hesitating less.
I think there's two parts to the Shabazz Connaughton thing. One, they're confident, and I think that's a real thing. Two, and people will argue with this one way or the other, I don't care, but money is on the line.
Right.
They want, like, there's absolutely something to being in a contract year. You can argue with it all you want. I will yell at you and scream la 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 in your face.
Also, Vonleh and Ed Davis.
Yes.
Aren't they in contract? I mean,
money is
we've
on
got
the
a
line.
lot of guys playing for a lot right now.
So you want to be confident. Like, even if you're not confident, fake it till you make it. Like that's just something that I think that is inherent with those guys, and maybe part of the reason why I don't want to start anything, but maybe part of the reason why is Harkless got a little bit comfortable, and that's why he made some of those comments, a couple weeks back about, I feel like I'm just in a track meet and I'm not getting the ball where I need it, blah blah blah. Pat Connaughton's in a track meet too, folks. He's getting the ball exactly where he wants it.
Yeah.
And he's
he's running as fast as he can.
Yeah, and as far as like making and creating shots, like the fast break opportunities, how many times have we seen Pat Connaughton since he's been a starter get out on the break and run the floor? I've seen a whole lot more than I saw from Mo Harkless when he was starting. So a lot of it's 1-2. So, and again, that comes back to, confidence and, maybe get some money, which I have absolutely no problem with that being a motivating factor.
Especially when it's working in our favor. I got one more comment to make about Napier, and then I think we probably should be winding it up here. But I didn't want to let this observation go away because I was so pleased with myself about it. When they were playing against Philadelphia, and this happened before against other teams, but a lot of teams try to switch to get Napier stuck on whoever's the tallest person on the field. So he was ending up on Embiid like several times, and you can see like Shabazz Napier like getting switched onto Embiid and him just looking up.
And how hilarious it was.
No fear.
Yeah.
Napier, and I was like, oh my God, Shabazz has been switched on to Embiid, but you know what? If anybody can do it, it's Shabazz.
Here's the thing about Baz.
It goes back to that confidence.
People who may not realize, like, Shabazz may have been a late first-round pick and kind of flamed out in Miami and Orlando and was kind of an afterthought here. Shabazz Napier led UConn to a national title as the primary option. Mm-hmm. Like, Shabazz...
He's a two-time champion.
Yeah, like,
he's a good player.
Yeah, like Shabazz was a no doubt like bully in college. Like he got buckets, and he is the dude does not lack in confidence. Yeah, he never has, and he's got some dog in him, and like for anybody who doesn't know, like UConn's not exactly the place you think of when you think about got some dog in you, but yeah, I get that they're the Huskies, blah blah blah, the horrible jokes, but like. There are just guys.
He just
you make it in this league because exactly. You're just not afraid.
Right up to these big guys, and the fact that they're a foot taller than him and have 50 pounds on him, more than 50 pounds. I don't know.
Oh, you're getting close to 100.
Okay.
like
anyway,
like Baz is 6 foot on a good day, and I would guess probably
soaking wet
185. Yeah. So and Embiid's 290.
Yeah. Okay.
So I mean,
Embiid
literally has a foot and 100 pounds.
Yeah, but it goes back to that
known as the heaviest
that,
bag of potatoes
thing.
ever.
I was like, you know what? If anybody could handle Embiid right now, I mean, I think Noah Vonleh is the person that we preferred to have on him. But if it happened, I don't know. I mean, he had a fighter's chance, I guess.
I mean, if you're just measuring confidence, it's a pretty fair fight. Embiid's still up there because he's Embiid. But like if you just took their confidences out and put them side by side of each other to fight,
they'd be the same size, about the same size.
Yeah, I mean Napier's got a puncher's chance. But if you put them side by side physically, whoo boy.
I think we should end on this because it's a very positive note.
Because my energy drinks are just now kicking in.
Just now, I think that
you don't need to listen to 2 times speed.
I know. I was worried about that earlier when you were talking. I was like, what about the people who listen to their podcast fast? Do you listen to podcast fast, Dan?
Certain podcasts.
I listen to them on like 1.3. That's like as fast. I'm about ready to maybe go up to 1.4, but I'm up to like 1.3 right now. And I was thinking, oh my God, if people are going to be thinking that Dan is on 1.3 automatically.
No, I did. For everybody who's wondering like why I'm talking so fast, I mainlined like 3 energy drinks in the span of like a couple hours tonight because I was just completely dragging it after a ridiculously long night last night.
So just take them right behind the curtain, Dan.
Yep.
I just thought that everybody thought that you were just that excited about the Trailblazers.
No,
that
it's
too,
it's
right?
a little bit of both. And I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity because I get to do all kinds of fun stuff. Besides the Blazers Edge podcast before we take it out of here, pay attention both to the Blazers Edge feed and to my feed over the next day or so for some cool news. I get the green light, so by the time this podcast comes out, I should within a few hours be able to talk about it. So I got some pretty cool stuff that's coming out that I hope that everybody else gets to enjoy as much as I get to.
Are you trying out for the team, Dan? Are they going to give you a spot? They're giving you a roster spot?
They're giving me a 10-day. The secret is out. My turnaround one-legged fadeaway, my Dirk fadeaway, my old man game is so strong.
You got to get me into one of the practices so that I can watch you and cover it.
Yeah, I'll get you the exclusive.
Well, so the message is for folks to watch out for some exciting breaking news from Dan. Woo-hoo. Also, to follow Danny, your handle?
At D Meringue. Still debating. I need to run it by my publicist if I need to change the handle.
Your agent. You can find me at TZB Biggs. You can also follow Blazers Edge on Twitter. You can find the podcast on blazersedge.com.
And of course, we have the one and only Blazers Edge night coming up.
Oh,
it is the holiday. Yes, I got you.
I did forget, and you remembered.
You're my teammate. I got you covered. Blazers Edge night coming up. This is the holiday season. This is kind of when things start to ramp up and people are looking to give back. We understand that that time of year where people are looking to do those sort of things and people are in need of a lot of different things. And this is just a really, really cool way for folks to give back. There's also, remember, you can, like last year, we have our partnership where, buy some socks, get some tickets donated. This year the socks are just as cool as last year. My Blazers Edge socks from last year have become my lucky socks, as Tara can attest to.
Why didn't you wear them on Saturday night? You should have worn them on Saturday night.
Yeah, I didn't think I need them.
Those washed and ready for Tuesday.
I didn't think I need them. That's a problem. But
that
if you want to donate
you,
and
Dan.
you can donate, please do. If you can donate and you can get to the game, go that night, because it is a awesome experience to see an arena full of kids who've never been to a Blazers game experience a Blazers game live. It puts goosebumps all up and down my arms. The hairs in your arms stand up. It's just a giant smile fest for all the kids and the adults too. So
in the last couple years, I think the Blazers have come through with a win on Blazers Edge night too.
In massive performances. Last year was the Nurkic game against Philly. Mm-hmm. So
that was fun.
Some cool stuff.
Right. So all the information about how to donate tickets to Blazers Edge Night is going to be on blazersedge.com. Basically, you purchase a ticket, through using a certain code, and it goes to Blazers Edge, and then somebody makes sure that they get given out to students and chaperones. In addition, let's see, what else do we have to tell people? Okay. I'll go back to... Well, we've got to go back to iTunes and Stitcher, so you can find the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Give us likes and reviews if you like what you're hearing. I think that's about it. Did we cover it?
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
This was really fun, Dan. It was fun talking to you tonight. Not that it's not usually fun.
You got to put yourself in the right frame of mind. I get it. But listen, I want this to go well over the next few weeks, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer. So I'm trying to namaste, home, enjoy.
Do it for Fan Dan. Do it for Fan Dan.
I'm hoping it does, because I want Fan Dan to be happy. But let's hope and pray and beg for the basketball gods to be kind.
And let's just end it with that.
Hey-o.